regard the prayer of Acts chapter 1 verse 24 as that of the 120, and that of Acts chapter 4 verses 24 through 30 as that of their own company. Paul, eminently a man of prayer. The second fact which impressed us while contemplating the field before us was that the great majority of the recorded prayers of the apostles issued from the heart of Paul, and this, as we have said, was really to be expected. You ask why? Several answers may be returned. Paul was preeminently the apostle to the Gentiles. Peter, James, and John ministered principally to Jewish believers, Galatians chapter 2 verse 9, and even in their unconverted days they had been accustomed to bow the knee before the Lord. But the Gentiles had come out of the heathenism, and it was fitting that their spiritual father should also be their devotional exemplar. Moreover, he wrote twice as many epistles as all the other apostles added together. Nevertheless, there are 8 times as many prayers in his epistles as in all of theirs. But chiefly we call to mind the first thing said of Paul after his conversion. Behold, he prayeth, Acts chapter 9 verse 11. It is as though that struck the keynote of his subsequent life, that he would, to a special degree, be marked as a man of prayer. The other apostles were not devoid of this spirit, for God does not employ prayerless ministers, as he has no dumb children. To cry day and night unto him is given as one of the distinguishing marks of his elect, Luke chapter 18 verse 7. Yet certain of his servants and some of his saints are permitted to enjoy closer and more constant fellowship with the Lord than others, excepting John, and such was obviously the case with a man who on one occasion was even caught up into paradise. A special measure of grace and of supplications, Zechariah chapter 12 verse 10, was vouchsafed him, so that he appears to have been favored above his fellows with a spirit of prayer which dwelt in him to a remarkable degree. Such was the fervor of his love for Christ and the members of his mystical body. Such was his intense solicitude for their spiritual well-being and growth, that there continually gushed from his soul a flow of prayer to God for them and thanksgiving on their behalf. Many illustrations of what has just been said will come before us, examples of where ebullitions of devotion broke forth in the midst of his doctrinal and practical instructions. The inclusiveness of prayer. Before proceeding further, it should be pointed out that in this series of studies we do not propose to confine ourselves to the petitionary prayers of the apostle, but rather take in a wider range. In Scripture, prayer includes much more than making known our requests to God, and this is something which his people need reminding of, and some of them instructing in these days of superficiality and ignorance. The very verse that presents the privilege of spreading our needs before the Lord emphasizes this very thing. In everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. Philippians chapter 4 verse 6. Unless gratitude be expressed for mercies already received, and thanks be given for granting us the continued favor of petitioning our Father, how can we expect to obtain his ear and receive answers of peace? Yet prayer, in its highest and fullest sense, rises above thanksgiving for gifts vouchsafed. The heart is drawn out in contemplating the giver himself, so that the soul is prostrated before him in worship and adoration. Though we ought not to digress from our immediate theme and enter into the subject of prayer in general, it should be pointed out that there is yet another aspect which needs to take precedence over those referred to above, namely, self-abhorrence and confession of our unworthiness and sinfulness. The soul must solemnly remind itself of who it is that we are approaching, even the Most High, before whom the very seraphim veil their faces, Isaiah chapter 6. Though divine grace has made the Christian a son, nevertheless he is still a creature, and as such at an infinite and inconceivable distance below the Creator. Therefore it is fitting he should both deeply feel and acknowledge this by taking his place in the dust before him. Moreover, we need to remember what we are, namely, not only creatures, but, considered in ourselves, sinful creatures, and thus we need both a sense and an owning of this as we bow before the Holy One. Only thus can we, with any meaning and reality, plead the mediation.